Welcome to Mathematical Minutes with Dr. Rhonda Fitzgerald, where we strive to give you understanding to mathematical concepts in minutes. Today we want to discuss solving quadratic equations using the square root property. So if you recall, a quadratic is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And we want to solve equations that look like this. However, we want to use the square root property. So let's look at a couple examples here. The first example that we want to look at is how do we solve x squared minus 16 equal 0. So notice there's multiple ways that we could solve, but we only want to use the square root property. In order to do this, we want our equation to be of the form something squared equals something else. So once again, we want our equation to look like something squared equals something. And notice it doesn't quite follow that pattern quite yet, because I have something squared minus something. All right, and so remember I said I need it to look like something squared equals something. So to get that form that we want, I'm going to add 16 to the other side. And now we have x squared equals 16. So this is the form that we want when using the square root property. Once again, something squared equals something. Now to use the square root property, to solve this, we want to take the square root of both sides. So I want to take the square root of both sides of my equation. Now solving, we get x, because the square root of x squared is x, equals plus or minus, right? So when I take the square root of 16, I have to consider the positive and the negative, so plus or minus 4. So that means my answer, I have two solutions, right? X is equal to a positive 4, and also x is equal to a negative 4. So that's solving using the square root property. Let's look at another example. That's going to look slightly different. My next example that I want to solve is x plus 1 quantity squared equals 49. So notice this, even though it looks different, it follows the form that we're looking for. The something squared equals something else, right? Something squared equals something else. And so now my next step to solve this is to take the square root of both sides. Take the square root. And when I take the square root, on this side we end up with x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 49 is 7. So plus or minus 7. In solving this now, remember to solve, right, I need to isolate my x. So to get x by itself, I need to subtract 1 from both sides. When I subtract 1, I always put this number in front of the plus or minus. So I end up with x is equal to negative 1, remember in front of the plus or minus 7. So don't leave our answer like this, right? This can be simplified, right? This simply says I have negative 1 plus 7 and negative 1 minus 7. So here x is equal to negative 1 plus 7, negative 1 plus 7, all right, which gives me x is equal to a positive 6. And my second solution is x is equal to negative 1 minus 7. And negative 1 minus 7 leaves us with a negative 8. So our two solutions are a positive 6 and a negative 8, right? Positive 6 and negative 8. So once again, let's look at this because they look very different, but recall when using the square root property, we want it to be of the form something squared equals something else, right? Something squared equals something else. And then take the square root of both sides, and key factor, don't forget, once I take the square root of both sides, don't forget my plus or minus, right? Don't forget the plus or minus in that particular case, and you'll be right on track. So this is solving quadratic equations using the square root property. Thank you.